Well, seniors, this is the day that I normally tell you to take out a blank piece of paper and a pencil when you come into class to share something with you. And this comes from my first year as a teacher 20-something years ago. The year was a pretty hard year in many, many respects, as I've told stories about. And there was one class, the jazz band, that I had by myself that really was a daily encouragement to me. We just had so much fun. And we got to the end of the year, and most of them would be leaving and going on. And I was trying to think of something really personal that I could do and I could share with them. And after I thought about it, I came up with this thing we're going to do right now. And I really thought it would be a one-year thing that I'd do, but the next year came around and students asked, the ones that had been in there. And as the years go by, I don't think a year's gone by that somebody hasn't mentioned it to me, this thing we did, that they used it or they saved it. And actually, truth is that yesterday I just got an email from a student that graduated several years ago, and she was sharing some of the things she's doing now, and she even mentioned this, that she ended up doing a paper on this when she was in college. So I'm going to do it again. I've done it all those years, except maybe one, for the past 20-some years. And what this is when I was in college, I was in a highly competitive place. It was pretty intense. The nature of the school with music, and we were always working hard in that really competitive environment. And my friend and I would go down to Seymour, Indiana every week, and he had a cassette tape of a guy named Bill Maxwell that was talking about leadership issues, and he had this one that was on consistent winning. And so we would listen to this over and over, and it helped us a lot and helped me a lot in college, just by the nature of the school keeping me going. And so I'd like to share some of these things with you first, and then after that share a few things that I have here, just thoughts that I had to share with you. So I'll try not to go too fast so they have a chance to write some of this down. I kept these papers one week when we were heading down. I took notes so I could remember it, and I put this in my trumpet case. And I pulled this thing out hundreds and hundreds of times. You can see now it's falling apart, and it's been taped up so many times because I've read it so many times. And I had it in my trumpet case for all those years, and would periodically bring it out and just go through it. So what this is about is consistent winning. And there's some people that seem to consistently come through things and be on the top. And we're not necessarily talking about winning trophies. I think consistent winning and its longevity is over a long period of time, and it talks a lot about who people are and what they're experiencing, and not just like a short athletic career that somebody might consistently win but not always do it in the right way. So it's very broad, and we could go a lot of ways with that, but I'll leave that there. We're talking about the idea of consistently winning or consistently doing well in life. Roman numeral 1. Maxwell is quoting a guy named Tom Peters that I don't know anything about. And he says, test fast, fail fast, adjust fast. Test fast, fail fast, and adjust fast. Consistent winners seem to be willing to do this. They'll try something, they'll fail at it, something doesn't work, and then they adjust and try it again. And maybe it fails again, and they test it, they fail, and they adjust, and this process ends up producing results. Many people that I've seen, they may try something, but the second they fail, that's the end of it. They don't keep going. Or some people will try something and they'll fail, and they'll just try the same thing again. They won't adjust. But really, the secret is try it. If it fails, adjust something, tweak it, and try it again and keep going. Roman numeral 2, winners compete with selves. Consistent winners seem to be, when they're competing, they're competing with themselves, they're setting goals, and they're focusing on themselves and their technique or their skill, as opposed to just keeping their eye on everybody else that's around them and getting distracted by somebody else's technique. And so they compete with themselves. And the biggest issue here, the one that I would like to highlight and bullet under that, is when competing with others, they control my life. And this is why it's so damaging, is that when the focus is on other people and you're competing with other people and you're always having to use other people as your motivation to keep going, and you don't have it within yourself, they end up controlling your life. If they do better, you're upset. And maybe if they're not as good, their competition level is lower, maybe you don't work as hard. But when you compete with yourself, you're always moving, you're always progressing and getting better at the things you need to get better at. Roman numeral 3, winners seldom beat themselves. Something you see about consistent winners that I've confirmed by watching this is rarely do they beat themselves in the game. And they're able to keep moving and not be so brutal on themselves. So often people can be so brutal on themselves that it's self-destructive. It puts walls up and inhibits them from moving on and getting better. And so you need to be honest with yourself about how things are going. We don't want to lie to ourselves ever. You need to be honest about how things are working and whatever you're doing, and maybe some things that you need to fix to get better in life or at a skill. But you don't want to be so brutal to yourself that you self-destruct. And the big bullet point with this one is this. Don't follow a bad shot with a bad decision. Great example of this being golf. Somebody hits a bad shot in golf, and instead of just trying to hit it back on the fairway, they try to do some impossible shot and just make the situation worse. Don't follow a bad shot with a bad decision. Sometimes in life we're going to make the wrong call, and we make the wrong call. We try something, or we say something that just doesn't come out right, or that we want to take back, and instead of just taking care of the situation, owning it, and moving on, we make it worse, and we dig the hole deeper. So don't do that. Don't follow your bad shots with bad decisions. Just fix it as best you can and keep moving on. Roman numeral 4. There's little difference between winning and losing. There's little difference between winning and losing. The consistent winners seem to recognize this, and the others don't. And so people that are consistently struggling, very often they have this idea that it's so far away, everything's impossible. The gap is too big, it's too far. And so then that stops them from moving. But there's other people that think, man, I'm so close. If I can just fix this one or two things, if I just fix this, it's just this tiny little thing, these details. And the details end up becoming the gap, that small difference. And if you can recognize there's really little difference there between winning and losing, and you can get to the detail point, it'll move you a lot farther, a lot faster. Roman numeral 5, will be choices that consistent winners make. And choices involve sacrifice. The consistent winners will pay a price that the others might not be willing to pay. And I would say that the one that I will highlight with this that seems to be so real is loneliness. Sometimes when you're working to be really good at something, it's going to require some loneliness, and you accept that. Doesn't mean you have to be lonely all your life, but it means that sometimes people at the top have to spend a lot of time working on their skill and in doing that in the practice room, for example, alone, and being willing to accept some aloneness at times. And also that loneliness issue sometimes comes from when somebody rises up. Very often there's people that are hard on them, and that might be pulling at them to keep them down a little bit, and there can be some isolation there. So it doesn't mean we have to live a completely lonely life, but we need to be willing to accept a little bit of the hard choices and be willing to accept some of those hard things that help us to get to new places that are rewarding. Roman numeral 6, I think we're on 6, is consistent winners will make hard decisions. Consistent winners will make hard decisions. And I'm going to highlight one hard decision that rings so true for me and has over the years, is consistent winners make hard decisions without all the data in. Most of the time, when you have a decision you have to face and you have to make that decision, you don't have all the data in. You don't know everything about how that decision is going to work out. You don't know everything surrounding the decision, but you have to make the decision. Not making this decision is making the decision, I guess, in a way. And if we don't make decisions, it puts blocks up and it keeps us from moving on. And sometimes if you wait until you have all the data in, it's too late. The decision is passed. And so often at this time in people's lives, when they're seniors and they have lots of big decisions, and they really are big decisions to make, some of them will hesitate and not make a decision, thinking it will somehow get easier, and it doesn't. So be willing to make hard decisions, even if you don't have everything figured out, and keep working. And sometimes you have to adjust later, but keep moving that way. And then the last thing I'll note from these notes is, as Maxwell is talking about consistent winning, he's defining it a little more deeply, and he says, and this would be Roman numeral 7, I guess, that winners give more than they plan to receive. Consistent winners in life, and I believe this to be true, will be givers and will give more than they plan to receive, and not make it all about themselves and what they get out of life. So I'll close with a few thoughts that I have just about stuff I've thought about, and so here's a few thoughts to add to the list. Be a builder. Number 1, be a builder. It's a lot easier to tear something down than it is to build it. They can destroy buildings, in seconds and blow them up, and things can get blown up, so quickly that took so long to build. And so it's easier to be the person sometimes that's always tearing things down and tearing people down and tearing ideas down, but be a builder. Be the person that comes up with the ideas and makes new things, as opposed to the one that's always picking at somebody else's things. Number 2, be a doer. Be the person that is the doer. The scoffers, the people that are always scoffing at something, they're always there. No matter what you do, they don't like this or they don't like that. They'll pick at your personality, your attitude, your looks, or anything. They just scoff at everything. But the scoffers and the doers are rarely the same people. The scoffers tend to be on the sidelines, and the doers seem to be out there. So be a doer and not a scoffer. Number 3, decide today who you want to be tomorrow. Decide today who you want to be tomorrow. What I've seen is most of the time, the hard situations we face, we can decide beforehand how we'll approach them in a general conceptual way. And we can make decisions who we want to be as people and how we want to approach life with honesty and integrity. And so make those decisions today, who you want to be, so that they impact tomorrow in the future. And when you face those hard things, you've kind of already made the decision who you want to be. You'll face these things in big ways and small ways, but if you work on that now, it'll impact later and make the journey easier. And lastly, head towards a destination. Have a destination and absorb the journey. Sometimes I see students or people that get so focused on the destination, what they want, and the dream, that they don't absorb the journey, and they miss out on a lot of stuff because they're so focused on the destination. So I think we need goals and we need destinations we're headed towards, but absorb the journey on the way and enjoy the journey. And sometimes what happens in the complexity of life is that the journey reveals all kinds of new things that we might experience, and sometimes changes the course of the destination in a good way, because it opens up new things. So have a goal, have a destination, head that way, but absorb the journey and keep your eyes open. So thanks a lot for all these years that you've given and the hundreds of hours, and thanks for what you've given to me as people all these years, coming to class and let me get to know you a little bit, and blessings on your life, and make sure you come back or you send me updates on how things are going, because I love to hear the updates. It really keeps me grounded in my own job.